Plan and Application webinar. My name is Jessica Kane, Program Specialist with the Division of Community Assistance in the Office of Community Services. As you settle in, if you don't mind, please let us know in the chat your name, your tribal organization, and from where you are joining. During today's webinar, we will begin with a welcome and opening remarks from Program Operations Branch Chief Verna Best. Following Verna, I will provide an overview of the requirements for the FY26 CSBG Tribal Plan, including timelines and the required sections for a complete CSBG Tribal Plan. We will briefly visit the Online Data Collection System, OLDC, and general provision of technical assistance. We will end the webinar with time for questions, and again, please be sure to ask all questions in the Q&A pod. I will now extend a warm welcome to the Program Operations Branch Chief, Verna Best.
Thank you, Jessica. And on behalf of the Office of Community Services, Division of Community Services Leadership Team, I too want to welcome you all to the fiscal year 26 Community Services Block Grant Tribal Plan webinar. I have profound gratitude and appreciation for the work of our tribes and tribal organizations and the entire CSBG network, so we intend to make good use of our time together. Before we begin, I respectfully acknowledge that although virtual, we are gathered on the traditional lands of Indigenous peoples whose stewardship of these lands continues. We honor the tribal nations whose communities have lived, worked, and cared for this land. As we come together for this CSBG Tribal Plan webinar, we recognize the enduring sovereignty and strength of our tribal nations, and we commit to supporting programs that uphold self-determination and community well-being. I hope you all will agree with me that CSBG plays a vital role in reducing poverty, revitalizing communities, and empowering low-income individuals and families to become fully self-sufficient in tribal communities. As stewards of CSBG funding, your dedication, innovation, and accountability ensure that services reach those who need them most. The Tribal Plan reflects your commitment to anti-poverty strategies that produce meaningful outcomes for every community you serve. Even during this time of uncertainty, I encourage you to work alongside of your federal office partners so together we can bring our best work forward and continue building pathways to flourishing communities. The Tribal Plan submission starts the CSBG life cycle for the federal office, although at the tribal level, the CSBG life cycle begins with assessing the needs of your members and communities. The Tribal Plan acceptance is also an initial step in the funding process. So you will hear us encouraging you to submit your plan early if possible, but definitely by September the 1st as required. In turn, we will provide you with thorough feedback with notification of any additional clarification needed, areas of noncompliance, and/or acceptance of the plan in very short order. We are prepared to review and respond to all plans in early September with a goal of having them all in accepted status by October 1st, if at all possible. And you will hear more about this later, but using the fillable tool will be most helpful in streamlining this process. Some of you heard the information that I shared during our recent fourth quarter calls, and let me gently nudge you that if you are not participating in our quarterly calls, I would encourage you to do so as we provide valuable information to our grant recipients during these calls, and they also provide an opportunity for peer-to-peer learning, as well as highlight some collaborative opportunities for tribes and states. But I want to acknowledge openly your concerns that you may have around the future of CSBG funding. We have not received any additional information, but have been reminded that CSBG is a statutory program that receives discretionary funding through congressional appropriations, which means Congress decides whether to fund CSBG. If Congress funds CSBG in fiscal year 26, HHS will administer the block grant as we have previously. HHS is also continuing to evaluate and develop any needed guidance regarding the effect recent signing of H.R. 1, the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, may have on us, as it did not address programs such as CSBG, LIHEAP, or weatherization. OCS will provide guidance if and as it becomes necessary. In addition, we will do the same as it relates to the July 10th announcement that HHS updated its definition of federal public benefits by rescinding the 1998 interpretation of the Personal Responsibility and Work Opportunity Reconciliation Act of 1996, known as PERORA. We are committed to providing you with accurate information once we've received updates. Before our time together today, I'm asking you to ground yourself and focus on the elements of the tribal plans. To begin the grounding process, let's quickly reflect on our performance, evaluation, accountability, availability, and knowledge, or the PEAK framework, which reminds us of the tools available to us to help us tell the CSBG story and grow its impact. The tribal plan in its totality is under accountability and knowledge of the framework. However, aspects of the tribal plan are included in all areas under performance, evaluation, accountability, availability, and knowledge. For performance, the CSBG tribal plan should clearly define expected outcomes and service goals related to community needs assessments that center you on your work of reducing poverty, revitalizing communities, and empowering low-income families. The plan gives you an opportunity to think about tribally informed indicators and evaluation processes, including how you ensure training and technical assistance is available for those who support the work of the block grant. Submission of the tribal plan is part of your basic accountability to comply with the CSBG Act to receive funding, as well as demonstrate that systems are in place to manage federal funds responsibly and transparently. Submission of the tribal plan is also key to ensuring the availability of CSBG services and that they are provided for individuals and families navigating poverty, as we understand that this is an essential, and in some cases, it's the difference between whether families will be able to meet their basic needs or not. In addition, the framework points us to how and where information about services is made publicly available through reporting, and the planning process also helps us to think about how to create partnerships to leverage resources to make services more available and sustainable beyond just federal funding. Finally, the tribal plan addresses knowledge of the tribal administrators to make data-driven decisions and use guidance and learn from best practices to successfully administer CSBG. Plans should show evidence of how knowledge from community needs assessments, stakeholder engagement, and prior performance has informed your current strategies. I would offer that by applying the PEAK framework to the development of your CSBG tribal plans, you will be able to strengthen the integrity of plan development by making sure the voices of the elders have been spoken into the development. You can also focus on results and accountability. You can ensure alignment with local tribal community needs. And together, as stewards of these resources, we can demonstrate that CSBG's mission to support the eradication of poverty is still both relevant and achievable. Before I bring Jessica back to take you through the tribal plan and submission requirements, I would like to share that in addition to the individual monthly contacts that each program specialist is making available to you, on August 5th from 3 to 4 p.m., we will be available to support you with any additional questions you may have as you complete your tribal plans. And information for you to register should be shared in very short order over the next couple of days, if not by the end of today. Also, encouraging you to save the dates of September 16th and 17th as we are finalizing plans for our annual tribal convening, which our theme is Supporting Sovereign Futures, Maximizing the Impact of CSBG. We've been developing the agenda with the support of Lux Consulting Group, who is our tribal portfolio training and technical assistance partner. And I believe they are on the line joining us today. And so I would encourage them, if they haven't already done so, to kind of engage in the chat. I think that's enough for me right now. I'm sure I'll have more before we actually close today's webinar, but I would welcome Jessica back to lead us through the rest of the presentation. Jessica?
Thank you, Verna, for your continued leadership. According to Section 677D of the CSBG Act, CSBG tribes and tribal organizations must prepare and submit an application and plan to receive CSBG funding. OCS provides funds to the CSBG tribal grant recipients based on the determination that the submitted CSBG tribal plan meets the requirements of the CSBG Act. The CSBG Tribal Plan not only serves as an application for CSBG funding, but a roadmap detailing how each tribe or tribal organization will administer CSBG funds in support of continued progression towards meeting the 3 national program purposes. So now we're going to hop into our first poll question to go in line with the last slide. Based on the legislation, one of the primary purposes for CSBG is to A, reduce poverty, B, reduce revitalization, C, restructure communities, or D, restructure poverty. Give folks a couple minutes. Um, Looking good so far. Couple more seconds. All right. So the correct answer is A, reduce poverty. The 3 primary purposes for CSBG funding, as previously mentioned, are to reduce poverty, revitalize low-income communities, and empower low-income families and individuals to become fully self-sufficient. All federal fiscal year 2026 CSBG tribal plans are due by September 1st, 2025. The CSBG tribal plan is based on the federal fiscal year, which runs from October 1st through September 30th. CSBG grant recipients have the option to submit a CSBG tribal plan that covers 1 fiscal year or 2 consecutive fiscal years. For this submission, a 1-year plan would cover federal fiscal year 2026, or October 1st, 2025 through September 30th, 2026. A 2-year plan would cover federal fiscal year 2026, which is October 1st, 2025 through September 30th, 2026, and federal fiscal year 2027, which is October 1st, 2026 through September 30th, 2027. In April of 2024, the Office of Community Services submitted a new information collection request, or an ICR, to the Office of Management and Budget to request clearance for the Community Services Block Grant Tribal Plan and Application version 1.0, which is the current fillable PDF. OCS requests that CSBG tribal grant recipients utilize the linked fillable CSBG Tribal Plan and Application tool when submitting for fiscal year 2026. By using the fillable and completing each area, you can better ensure that your plan and application meets all requirements under the CSBG Act and information is more aligned with the annual report. As such, the key components required for a complete tribal plan submission will now include an electronic SF424M, a tribal administrative information and transmittal letter, and the tribal plan and application, which includes required attachments like proof of public inspection. The submission of the CSBG Tribal Plan is subject to all requirements of the CSBG Act, including the public hearing requirement. The Division of Community Assistance will determine whether grant recipients submitted a complete application to qualify for federal funds as stipulated in the CSBG Act. The remainder of this webinar will utilize the CSBG Tribal Plan fillable to review requirements for submission. To apply for FY26 funding, CSBG Tribal Grant recipients listed as Group A in the action transmittal and listed on this slide must submit the completed CSBG Tribal Plan to OCS by September 1st, 2025 via the Online Data Collection System or OLDC. For the purposes of CSBG, currently tribes or tribal organizations that are directly funded or integrated through PL 102-477 are also required to submit a CSBG tribal plan every 1 or 2 years by September 1st in accordance with 42 USC 9908B, 42 USC 9911D, or 45 CFR 96-42E. As such, a CSBG tribal plan will be due for all PL 477 tribes or tribal organizations in Group A, noted with an asterisk on September 1st, 2025 as well. This interim process for funding in fiscal year 26 for PL 477 tribes will be in effect until the implementation of a new approach is reached in consultation with tribes in the Bureau of Indian Affairs. The CSBG tribal grant recipients listed in Group B in the action transmittal and on this slide are not required to submit a complete CSBG state plan for the fiscal year 26 CSBG tribal plan cycle. The listed grant recipients under Group B may still revise their accepted CSBG tribal plan. However, OCS does not require tribes to revise their accepted two-year tribal plans. Please note that the action transmittal asks CSBG grant recipients with accepted two-year plans ending September 30th, 2026 to review and revise as necessary their accepted plans to ensure they are consistent with the executive orders and the secretarial directive on DEI-related funding, and as prescribed by the directive, do not support DEI initiatives or any other initiatives that discriminate on the basis of race, color, religion, sex, national origin, or another protected characteristic. The CSBG grant recipients with previously accepted two-year plans must submit any revised plans or notify OCS that no revision is necessary by November 3rd, 2025. These revisions are subject to the requirements of submitting a full plan, including having a public inspection and the authorized official certify the report. We will now begin our overview of the requirements for the fiscal year 26 CSBG Tribal Plan, starting with the SF424M. The SF424M is an Office of Grants Management requirement. It is submitted as part of the CSBG Tribal Plan, with the CSBG Tribal Plan being attached to the SF424M. The SF424M is a required form for the Office of Grants Management and informs that office of the authorized official. OGM uses the SF424M to send the notice of awards to the authorized official. Of importance, the authorized official within the SF424M must match the one listed in the transmittal letter and described in the CSBG Tribal Plan Section 1. If the SF424M is not aligned with the attached letter and/or Section 1 of the plan, the program specialist will notify the grant recipient of needed changes. Prior to submission of the SF424M, it is important to ensure all information entered is accurate, including those in the automated fields, such as critical entries like the Unique Entity Identifier or UEI. So what is the transmittal letter? The transmittal letter is a letter signed by the authorized official that includes the following: the name of the tribe or tribal organization, the fiscal year to be covered, fiscal year or years to be covered, contact information for the tribe's authorized official, contact information for the CSBG program contact person within the tribe, and a clear delegation of authority by the tribal CEO, chairman, or president if applicable. This letter is important as the tribal plan must be certified in OLDC by the designated authorized official who is noted within the letter. On July 16, 2025, OCS released the action transmittal for the fiscal year 26 CSBG Tribal Plan. Attached was the CSBG Tribal Plan and Application Fillable PDF tool. Through the fillable PDF, ACF is gathering information about planned activities related to and funded by CSBG for the upcoming fiscal year or years. OCS strongly recommends tribal grant recipients utilize the fillable PDF to ensure all required elements are included in their submission to reduce errors and to expedite review and acceptance. It also ensures that the plan more closely aligns with the annual report. The fillable PDF is approximately 24 pages in length and requires 5 signatures. You should access and download the Community Services Block Grant Tribal Plan and Application version 1.0 that is linked in the chat. Save it to your computer. Fill in all fields, ensuring that you are saving often and that all required signatures are included prior to submission. The CSBG Tribal Plan fillable has 8 separate sections as seen on this screen. We will now go through each section separately. I'm going to start us off with Section 1, CSBG Tribal Administrative Information. The purpose of Section 1 is to provide information in relation to the tribe or tribal organization designated to administer CSBG. It will include details on the years covered by the plan, the tribal grant recipient name and information, the authorized tribal official, the tribal CSBG point of contact, and if authority is delegated by the original authorized official and to whom it is delegated. The information included in this section should mirror closely what is included in the SF424M and the transmittal letter. Section 2, Tribal Resolution and Recognition, is meant to identify whether the tribal grant recipient represents more than one tribe, and if all tribes, villages, communities, and jurisdictions served by the grant recipient have state or federal recognition. Additional information requested includes the citation for state and federal recognition and/or additional detail on why they may not have recognition. Section 3, CSBG Tribal Plan Goals and Objectives, provides detail on the CSBG specific goals and objectives for the proposed CSBG funding within the tribe or tribal organization. The identified goals and objectives should address how the tribe will assist low-income families and individuals in the following: removing obstacles that block the achievement of self-sufficiency, securing and retaining meaningful employment, attaining adequate literacy and education, making better use of available income, obtaining and maintaining adequate housing, obtaining emergency assistance, achieving greater participation in the affairs of the communities, supporting youth development in low-income communities, coordinating with other programs related to the purposes of the CSBG Act, and forming linkages to fill service gaps. Let's take a moment to explore the development of CSBG goals, objectives, and strategies. Goals are what you would like to accomplish. It's the big idea. It is often a broad statement of what your organization hopes to achieve and is often more qualitative than quantitative. An example goal is, through the CSBG funding, the tribe will promote the self-sufficiency of individuals and families with low income. Goals are supported by more targeted and measurable objectives. Objectives detail how you are going to accomplish something and should be measurable. When developing your objectives, consider including strategies that answer the question, how do we accomplish our goal? For example, Objective 1.1. Blank will assist individuals and families in applying for services which eligibility has been determined during intake. Staff will be knowledgeable of available services and eligibility. Objective 1.2. Staff will ensure access to nutritious foods through supports and services such as creation of a community garden with provision of gardening classes and supplies and 3 or more drive-through food events. Staff will engage local tribal members in the meal preparation and delivery process, fostering a sense of community and shared responsibility, and supporting the inclusion of culturally relevant food and practices. Objective 1.3. Staff will provide funding for workforce training and certification programs, including program fees, transportation costs, and necessary supplies. Trainings will cover data entry and agriculture. To support this process, they will establish partnerships with the local workforce agency and community colleges administering the training programs. These are just a couple examples. Section 4, CSBG community-based feedback is meant to confirm that the tribe or tribal organization solicited feedback from tribal members served, demonstrating evidence of public participation. In this section, the tribe will acknowledge if feedback was solicited, and if yes, then describe how the feedback was solicited. Tribes are also able to include evidence of how public feedback was collected, such as copies of announcements regarding where the plan was posted or made available for review, and other evidence of public feedback. CSBG funding is meant to be responsive to the needs of the community. We often refer to maximum feasible participation as a core value of CSBG. In case you are not familiar, maximum feasible participation refers to a concept developed during the War on Poverty in the 1960s, connected to the Economic Opportunity Act of 1964. It emphasizes the active involvement of low-income individuals in the planning and implementation of programs designed to address poverty. Much like storytelling in tribal communities, it aims to empower community members by giving them a voice in shaping solutions to their own challenges. Soliciting feedback is the primary reason for exploring this concept. To ensure feedback, ideally provide more than 30 days notice to the public. Ensure time remains to incorporate the feedback received into the plan prior to submission. And think creatively to encourage participation. Consider the different avenues for engaging with those served, such as your website, newsletters, newspaper ads, radio announcements, bulletin boards, and social media. Let's move on to Section 5. The purpose of this section is to go over how the tribe will allocate administrative programmatic funding, assure compliance with the CSBG limitations outlined in the CSBG Act, and provide detail on the most recent single audit review. In item 5.1, you will notice an allocation table for year 1 and year 2. If you are filling out a 1-year plan, then you will only need to fill out the year 1 column. If you have a 2-year plan, then you will fill out the year 1 and year 2 columns. Within the table, you will specify the percentage of funds that will be allocated for administration for the CSBG core services. Important things to remember. You can only allocate up to 5% for administrative funds. No less than 95% can be allocated to program funds. Funds cannot be used for the purchase or improvement of land or the purchase, construction, or permanent improvement other than low-cost residential weatherization or other energy-related home repairs of any building or other facility without an approved federal waiver. On this slide, there are several notable program practices that tribes have used their CSBG funds to support. A few of them include mental wellness services for youth and adults to support suicide prevention and recovery, parenting support through tribe-specific trainings and workshops, connecting tribal elders with youth through senior center programming to continue social connection and learning across generations, in pre-employment skills training, such as resume writing, interviewing, and conducting job searches, with so many more examples of powerful programming happening across tribal communities. We'd really like you to drop in the chat some of the ways your tribe or tribal organization is serving your community through CSBG funded programming. In Section 6, individual eligibility and targeted community eligibility, Tribal grant recipients detail the policies and procedures for determining income eligibility for individual and community services. Item 6.1, instances when individual income verification is not possible or practical, such as in the instance of a disaster or situations where documentation is difficult to obtain. It also requests detail on how the tribe or tribal organization ensures that community-wide services primarily target and benefit communities with low income. According to the CSBG Act, the income threshold is at or below 125% of the federal poverty level. However, in fiscal year 2020, the CARES Act authorized states to raise the income eligibility threshold to 200% of the federal poverty level. This ceiling is still current and is an option, not a requirement, for tribal grant recipients until modified by congressional action. You can stay up to date to any FPL changes by reviewing your most recent notice of award. The approved income eligibility threshold will be a footnote of the notice of award. I also wanted to note I'm seeing some great items in the chat of some of these programs. We're seeing food, clothing, shelter, and utilities, school supplies, craft art classes, intertribal councils. So thank you for sharing. Section 7, CSBG Statement of Assurances, requires confirmation that the tribe agrees to the programmatic, administrative, and financial assurances and certification required under the CSBG Act. The section will include a narrative response that details how the grant recipient will carry out the required programmatic assurances and requires a signature from the authorized official. When filling out the assurance narrative, please ensure that your narrative response includes a detailed description of the CSBG service delivery system, geographical areas and categories of individuals to be served, criteria and method used for distribution of CSBG funds, the purpose of funds, including a description of the activities to be supported with CSBG funds, linkages that will be fostered to fill identified gaps in services, coordination efforts with other public and private resources, and any innovative community and neighborhood-based services that will be implemented. This response allows OCS to see how these assurances are being fulfilled and how CSBG funding is being utilized in your community. Onto the final section, Section 8, Federal Certifications. The purpose of Section 8 is for the grant recipient to verify or acknowledge that CSBG funds will not be used to carry out prohibited activities and the reporting of such activities. These certifications pertain to lobbying, drug-free workplace, debarment, suspension, and other responsibility matters, and environmental tobacco smoke. This serves as a reminder to the grant recipient that these activities are prohibited and shows OCS that the grant recipient will remain compliant with the CSBG Act. The CSBG authorized official will be required to sign after each certification. Again, this section must be signed or selected by the authorized official. Now that we have covered every section of the tribal plan, let's go over how to submit the plan into OLDC. The online data collection system, also known as OLDC, is where you will complete the SF424M and upload the CSBG Tribal Plan fillable. The individual who will be uploading the CSBG Tribal Plan and the authorized official will need OLDC access. The authorized official will need access because they are required to certify and submit the finalized CSBG Tribal Plan in order to be accepted. If you or the authorized official need to request assistance with OLDC, please contact the Policy, Data, and Evaluation branch and copy your program specialist. The email for the Policy, Data, and Evaluation branch is in the chat. The steps to access OLDC include, first, navigating to the Grant Solutions homepage, which is also included in the chat. Select the login.gov for recipients and grantors option. You can see the image on the slide. Enter your username and password for login.gov. You may need to use a two-factor authentication method. And select OLDC from the list of grant solution services. The CSBG Tribal Plan and supporting documents are submitted as an attachment to the SF424M as a single PDF portfolio. We will discuss how to create a single PDF portfolio and attach the PDF to the SF424M in a minute. When opening the SF424M, please ensure you are in the correct reporting period. Submissions for the fiscal year 26 CSBG Tribal Plans will have a reporting period of October 1st, 2025 to September 30th, 2026, in line with the federal fiscal year. To start filling out the SF424M, click the plus button next to the reporting period in the Actions column, as you can see highlighted in blue. Prior to uploading to the SF424M, please consolidate documents into a single PDF portfolio. To prepare for this process, start by gathering all required materials. This includes the fillable CSBG Tribal Plan, the transmittal letter, the state recognition documentation as needed, the tribal resolution if representing more than one tribe, and any evidence of the hearings. Once gathered, ensure all documents are saved as PDF files and the necessary electronic or manual signatures are added. To create a single PDF portfolio with the gathered materials, first open Acrobat 2020 or Acrobat DC. Next, select either the hamburger menu if using Windows or the File menu if using Mac OS. Select Create and then PDF Portfolio. Select Add Files menu in the upper left of the Create PDF Portfolio window. Next, add a file, folder of files, pages from a scanner, web pages, or items in the clipboard. You can arrange the order of the PDF files, and please ensure that the fillable PDF is the first document in the portfolio. Last, create to combine the files into one single PDF portfolio. This will now be referred to as the CSBG Tribal Plan. Next, attach the CSBG Tribal Plan to the SF424M and validate. There are action buttons found at the top of the SF424M page in OLDC. To attach the CSBG Tribal Plan, select View and add attachments. Once the SF424M is filled out and the CSBG Tribal Plan is attached, select Validate to check the form for errors or missing data. All errors must be addressed prior to submitting the form. In order to certify the SF424M, ensure that all relevant items have been filled out and attached. The authorized official is required to certify the SF424M with their e-signature before being submitted. Again, it must be the authorized official who certifies the SF424M. Once certified, the authorized official or another user with OLD access can submit the SF424M by clicking the Submit Action button. The CSBG Tribal Plan is not completed until the Submit button is clicked. To make edits to the SF424M or to attach an updated copy of the CSBG Tribal Plan after submission, you'll need to first unsubmit in OLDC. To do this, go to the Report Form Status page. Select the Unsubmit Report button under the Report Action header, as you can see highlighted in yellow above. After making any necessary changes, resubmit the SF424M using the steps previously outlined. An important note, if the authorized official changes throughout the year, the CSBG grant recipients with accepted CSBG tribal plans are required to revise the following: the SF424M, the CSBG tribal plan, and the designation letter, even if they are in the second of a previously approved 2-year plan. This will ensure that OGM sends the notice of award to the correct person and that OCS has the most accurate and up-to-date information. Please also ensure that you notify your program specialist of any changes. Now we're going to go over OCS's review and follow-up process. Your assigned program specialist will be done with the initial review within 10 business days of an on-time submission. Once the program specialist is done reviewing your tribal plan, you will receive by email a review memo. The review memo will include these items: if your plan has been accepted or returned, OCS feedback, and if the feedback indicates clarification needed, incomplete, or recommendation, the tribe will need to provide a response in the tribal response column. Once you receive your review memo, you will review feedback and return a completed review memo. When your program specialist confirms your edits, you will submit an updated tribal plan and application as required. Each region is assigned a program specialist and data and evaluation specialist. For targeted and general technical assistance, please reach out to your assigned program specialist and copy the policy data and evaluation specialist. We work closely as a team and request that you include both contacts in any outreach. You can find your regional contacts on the page shared in the chat. OCS also contracts with Lux Consulting Group at tribalta@luxcg.com to provide training and technical assistance to CSBG Tribal Grant recipients. Please let your regional program specialist know if you would like to connect with Lux. And thank you, Lux, for your continued support. If you are having issues with your OLDC account, please contact the Grant Solutions Help Desk and copy both your program specialist and your PDE specialist. Please note here your assigned regional program specialist as seen on this slide. As well as your assigned regional policy, data, and evaluation specialists. And the regional fiscal liaisons from the Fiscal Operations and Accountability Unit. Thank you all for